welcome back to Combat Insiders. Once again, thank you so much. Please, if you're watching this video, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, please, and get all the notifications when we upload new content. That's Nick Portello over there. Josh Furr's over here. We have a very special guest today, Jim Freeman, part owner of the Bare Knuckle Boxing out of the UK. And Jim, what's going on, my friend?
All good, all good. Everything okay with you guys?
Oh, yeah.
We're doing great. Look, I guess real quick before we get into all the other stuff, and you know, before we get into the events and stuff like that, I'd like to know, how did you first get involved into the the world of combat sports, the world of bare knuckle boxing? How did you get started?
So bare knuckle boxing, basically, I went as a fan, and it was sort of a friend said to me, "Do you want to come and see some bare knuckle boxing? It's in Hay Bales. It's at a gangster's house." And it was kind of everything you imagine. People with very limited skill sets, just bar and balls, just swinging. 100% males, loads of testosterone, loads of characters, and just a bit strange, really. Obviously, that was my kind of first experience of sort of what you'd call, as it were, organised, any kind of organised bare knuckle boxing. Obviously, I've been around travellers and stuff before, and been involved in sort of traveller fights and that kind of thing. So. There was that, and then, like I said, that was my sort of first thing to get involved with that. And it was like I say, everything you would imagine that sort of bare knuckle boxing is perceived to be in this country.
In terms of bare knuckle boxing, obviously for years it's been kind of underground, I guess is the appropriate term. For years it was kind of underground. It wasn't fully legal, but what made you decide to get into it and turn it into, to make it kind of legal, to be really a big part of that?
Yeah, just to make it into a proper sport, so putting rules in place, to get it recognised and stuff. And there's been, massive challenges to do that. But we saw potential something. Everyone's always looking for the next big thing in combat sport. I'm old enough to remember that boxing used to look at MMA like, oh, that's that little sport that's going to do nothing and is nowhere. And now it's on a level par with it. So it just shows that, people have kind of come full circle. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of fed up with a lot of the saturated MMA market, and people are always looking for the next thing, aren't they? The next excitement, where they're going to get their buzz from, and that's really what it's about.
So I know we had talked about this before, how your first events and stuff, they were legitimate hay bales, like the ring was created. What's it like to go from that to the O2 Arena? It really didn't take you that long, considering how far you come. What were the hurdles involved going from the we made a hay bale ring to you're in a legit well-known arena in the UK?
Well, the first thing we did was get rid of them silly hay bales, because there is no history of hay bales in bare knuckle boxing. It's a complete fallacy.
But it worked. It worked.
Yeah, it just. But like I say, for anyone with anyone's skill set, they don't want to fight in hay bales. They want a proper ring. So the first thing me and Joe did was get rid of the hay bales. And like I said, at the time it was kind of like, oh, the history of it. But when you look at bare knuckle boxing history, it's always been a roped area. It's always been some sort of ringed area. It's never been hay bales. So that was just a kind of a gimmicky nonsense kind of thing. So the first thing we did was put it in the ring. The challenges have been the hardest to get where we are now. Obviously, we've still got massive levels to kind of jump up to get where we want to go to. But to get to this point, to have it recognised that, we can book any venue in the UK. We've got legal betting on us. We've got a TV contract. So all the things you say, like this is a legit sport, we've ticked the boxes. To get to this point was probably harder than perhaps getting to the next point, which is, putting more bums on seats, more eyes on the prize, and that kind of stuff. So getting to this stage, for instance, the first time we did it at the O2 was a month after the Manchester terror attack. So we had 12 meetings, myself and Joe, council, police, and everyone was like, oh, you just can't have bare knuckle boxing. And then when you start challenging them back and saying, well, why can't we have bare knuckle boxing? Yeah, because it's illegal. Okay, why is it illegal? And then you start going into the safety aspect, and then you start going into the background of myself and Joe, and you think we're just normal guys, business guys, Drake guys, no criminal records. So, and you take out all them sort of challenges, and then you say to them, well, look, we have the same medical care as a good MMA event or a glove boxing event, trauma medics, ambulances on site, doctors, and you start looking into all that, and you think, well, it's actually safer than the sort of glove boxing and with the repetition of the knocking the brain around and stuff. And like you said, people don't die in bare knuckle boxing, unfortunately. In the glove boxing particularly, it's a reasonable regular occurrence, and it's kind of a sad thing. And I think that the bare knuckle actually leads to what fans want, which is a more high impact kind of fight. You know, no one wants to see a 12-round chest war in glove boxing. No one wants to see, you know, an MMA fight where it's all grappling. People like the stand-up. They like the striking. That's what it is. What it's all about, really.
It's kind of crazy that you said that, because we recently put out a big article with all the background and studies that bare knuckle boxing medically is actually safer. I know if you go online, some people believe one, some believe the other, but the medical studies say in multiple cases that bare knuckle is safer. So we will have to link that article, so if anybody's interested in all the actual facts. Kind of a boring article unless you want to read it. So what I want to know is, the day's going to come where you're going to outgrow the O2 Arena. I mean, you're on the incline. The day's going to come. Will the day come, though, when we see your promotion on our end of the pond in the United States? Is that in the long-term plans?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the guys who own the O2, it's an American guy who owns it. Who owns the Barclays Center. So obviously for us, we'll wait. You know, and it's no disrespect to Mississippi or to Wyoming.
Right.
When it's opened up there properly, you can come to a big state, you know, a big fighting state. So your Vegases, your New Yorks and stuff like that.
Right.
And we'd be looking at interested in doing that. You know, we've had over 20, probably 25 Americans fight here for us since we've done it. We've had guys from 52 countries represented here. We are the global brand for bare knuckle boxing. We've had 50 shows. So you know, the sort of stats are there. You know, going to America is always a credible thing. You know, it's like Americans. They always think like, oh, I want to go and fight in Europe. It's kind of a cool thing.
Right.
It's the same. They always want to fight in Vegas and stuff. And it was always, you know, everyone here of any kind of ilk was always like, I want to fight in the MGM Grand. That was always the kind of the big sort of thing. So it's the same vice versa. But when we're ready to, you know, we're not going to do it just as an ego thing. There's no point, you know, doing it. It's got to be a proper business decision. We've got to build build properly until we get to that level. So I would imagine that internationally, we'd probably end up maybe in like a Belgium or something like that. It's got like a really good combat sports kind of base as a European one first, and then probably come up with a fun when you know, when it's there and it makes kind of business sense. Like I said, it's not about just doing an ego. We actually had a show in 2015 in Philly that we came over. That was a bit of a disaster. But we actually had a show over there that turned out in sort of like Indian land and all that kind of nonsense. That it was just a nightmare. But that's a whole another story. But yeah, you'll
just wait till it's all legal where you want it to be, and then you'll move it in a business savvy way so it works out.
Yeah.
But
I can book the Barclays Center tomorrow. You know, I can book.
Right.
I can go. Oh, we're going to go and do that. But like I say, it's got to make sense for the growth of the company and you know, the numbers.
Now, you have had big names from here. You've had your Melvin Gillard, Cody McKenzie, Joe Riggs, Shannon Rich. A lot of guys have been there to fight. What? And this could be even a blanket question, even not just for your promotion, just bare knuckle in general. Why do you think these guys are phasing out of like MMA that are big names, and they're immediately getting into bare knuckle? It's like, it's not even an option. They leave MMA, and you've had, who else? Chris Lytle. You've had a ton of names.
Yeah,
the list is very long.
We've had all American fights. We've had Marcus Gaines versus Mike Richmond. We've had Tony Johnson versus Josh Burns. So we've actually had full American fights, you know. So you know, we kind of tick them boxes. I think with the MMA in general, what happens with, you attract the MMA fighters into bare knuckle a lot easier than the glove boxers for two reasons. The first reason is money. Purely that glove boxers are paid more money than MMA fighters in general, so you're able to attract an MMA fighter a little bit easier than a glove boxer.
Right.
And secondly, the MMA fighters, they fight with 4-ounce mitts. You know, going bare knuckle is kind of like, yeah, that sounds badass, I want to do that. Whereas the glove boxers are a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm using my hands and all this kind of stuff. So you find an MMA fighters is more like, yeah, I want to do that. So that's why you tend to get a bit more MMA fighters than you do good quality glove boxers doing bare knuckle at the moment.
Now,
go ahead.
I did have one question, and it's just purely from a fan point of view. Everybody that knows the sport knows Jim Sweeney. That's just what it is. He's a name. And we also know one from over here, Julian Lane's been over there to fight him twice, and they've split.
Yeah.
I have to know, will the day come eventually where they do a third fight?
No, we won't deal with Julian again. There's a number of reasons. I don't really want to get too much into sort of slagging fighters and all.
No, please.
And it's a shame, really. I suppose it's a similar scenario like Demetrius Johnson leaving the UFC and then calling a rematch with Henry. You know, you don't leave if you're desperate for that third fight. You know, it's that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, you know, a scenario happened that Julian was a bit naughty when he was over here. We had some issues with his accommodation. He didn't bring the belt to the fight. Just kind of nonsense kind of stuff, which you could smooth over, because you know the appetite was there for the third fight. But in the rematch fight, Julian had a broken jaw. Now there's no way that we was obviously going to match Julian, because you know the events run concurrent. You know, there's no way we're going to match him for the fight because he had a broken jaw for that next fight. And then what happened was a promotion pops up here that was just nothing more than a Facebook page similar to the WBKFF.
Oh yeah.
Over there.
Oh yeah.
Was offering stupid money. They matched Julian with Melvin. He decided that I'm going to go and take that. You know, that kind of money just didn't exist. Of course, the fight never happened, but by then he'd already left. In the meantime, because we do random drugs tests here, we had a drugs test back from Julian which he failed on quite a lot of stuff. So it's not really someone that we're looking at. Don't get me wrong, he's a tough boy. He's a big
yeah, absolutely.
No doubt he's absolutely his fight ability. There's no issues with that. Julian as a person, you know, we couldn't have him represent our band. There was some, you know, issues with his mother that was brought up and stuff. Like I say, I don't like to get drawn too much into that. So,
yeah, no,
from our point of view, we will never deal with Julian again. Just a nightmare. Out of 500 fighters, the worst one I've ever had to deal with, which is a shame, because again, the third fight in terms of looking at it would have been a good thing. But you know, on the flip side, you know, there's this kind of thing like, oh, they've got to have a rubber match. Well, they don't really, because you know, if you look at boxing, for instance, Lennox Lewis, you know, he avenged all his losses. That's good enough. If you avenge your loss, it's kind of good enough.
Right.
All I would say to you guys is, Julian decided to leave before we actually had any results back. So the minute you leave, you're turning your chances down of having that
right.
fight.
Yeah.
Understood. If we could just change gears for a second, I'd like to touch up on something you were talking about before and just kind of expand on it. Is you were talking about how you think like bare knuckle boxing is kind of going full circle, like how MMA did, right? Where, you know, like you were saying, when MMA first came around, everybody was like, oh, this is cockfighting, this is garbage, and then, you know, then it blew up, right?
Yep.
Do you think that bare knuckle boxing is kind of that next step, where it's like you said, the most exciting part? You know, I love grappling, I love jiu-jitsu, don't get me wrong, but you know, the more exciting part is the stand-up, like you said, and this is pure stand-up. Bare knuckle boxing is the best parts of that, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that this is the next evolution, and that it's just gonna blow up from here?
Well, that's certainly the idea. Like I said, you know, myself and Joe wouldn't be wasting our time pushing the brand and investing all the money and effort we're doing if we didn't firmly believe that what we were doing was the potential to go big. So we've seen that since day one, because people are like, say to us quite often, like, oh, you guys don't realise what you got. Well, actually we do. That's why we spend so much effort and time trying to push the brand and push the fighters and stuff. And you know, it's we've had a mantra since we come in, myself and Joe, was both the same. It was about back page stories, not middle page, because you know it's a very lazy story, bare knuckle, to make it like, oh, I'm really tough. And you know, we've all seen the bare knuckle fighters who have got these made up records that you can't find any footage and all that kind of stuff, and you know, they've done this and done that, and it's all a nonsense. We want to make it about sportsmen, and that's what it was always about the fighters, and about them making us sports stars. So you know, when I see like us on back of newspapers and in sports bulletins and stuff, that makes me really happy, because that's really where we want to be, away from the gimmicky side of it.
Plus, your YouTube is very the BKB YouTube is, there's tons and tons of fights. I've been through them. Like, pretty much, are all the fights somewhere on there at some point?
Yeah, we lost some. We had an issue with someone that was running the YouTube previously. So there's actually two channels. There's our old channel, and there's our new channel. But yeah, they can pretty much all be found. There is a few that's missing, which is a shame. Also, you know, a lot of the mistakes, and we've made, you know, lots of mistakes all the way to get where we are now. It hasn't been a smooth path. You know, we didn't invest enough in filming in the early days. You know, we had some quality fights. If you look at them, they're grainy. It isn't great. So we should have paid a bit more attention with the early days. But that's all part of the of where we've got to, and part of the story of that of where we are now. Which is a shame for some of the old fights, that unless you were there, you don't really appreciate what a great fight it was. You know, we've had guys with, you know, similar to UFC 1 where the guy had his tooth knocked out with a kick. We had a guy who came in without a gum shield who's actually fighting next Saturday, who had all his teeth knocked out and he carried on fighting. And just great stuff. If we'd have had it like on camera, you guys would be like, wow, that's badass. But you know, the footage isn't great of it, so it's got nowhere near the impact it should have done, really.
Yeah, and speaking of footage, I actually put the article out today. You guys are hitting pay-per-view. We can see it on Fight TV here. How did that deal all work out? I think it's great that it can be bought in both places. I know I'm getting it. Yep. But was that like is even that a process to get from the way you were airing it to pay-per-view to get into Fight TV? I mean, is that all just part of the growth?
Yeah, we've been on a few broadcasters. So we was on Vice TV, which is obviously you guys have got over there, part of from Disney. So they broadcast BKB 11, and that went out to several countries as well. So we've tried multiple kind of ways and people to sort of hook it. And you know, it's again with anything like these, people have got to believe in the brand. So you know, like Fight, obviously they're a combat channel, they believe in the brand, but it was important for us because they broadcast a show that had been on that had a mini riot on, you know, on their last one. That we had to tie them up to say to them, look guys, you can't have another show in the UK bare knuckle. If you want to have us, you've got to believe in our brand and believe in what we're doing. So a lot of it, that's the kind of stuff, because we don't want to be alongside other people that are not fully legal or not doing things correctly, because then it diminishes and we get thrown in with them, and we don't want that. We want to separate ourselves from, you know, guys, and good luck to anyone that wants to do it, but you know, mostly sort of little guys, sort of Facebook pages, and we've seen with over there with the WBKF is, you know, if it's not done properly, it can damage the whole thing.
It was a disaster, and I really think when that went down, it kind of, I don't want to say it lessened the sport, but it definitely got some people thinking, because people just assumed maybe your promotions, because bare knuckle must all be the same. Like we had to do articles and videos trying to explain it. Like, listen, I understand it says bare knuckle, but these guys aren't them, and these guys aren't them. Because now they're, oh my God, it's bad. I've been trying to follow it, but it's really.
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing is just a fuck fest in truth. You know, I was speaking to Brad Pickett today, and the same with him is, you know, when he announced he's fighting bare knuckle for us, he had 2 or 3 really big names, current UFC fighters, who phoning him up, messaging him saying, "Don't do it. They don't pay. They fucked over Baroni and all this." And he was like, "Look, that isn't these guys. You know, it's just like having an MMA promotion who stiff people. But because we're in an infancy, it's very, very important, and that's." When it goes back to the point of Fight TV, it's exactly the same. Is, you know, you've got to have the safety, you've got to have the medical care. We can't be associated with any brand that's going to be involved with other promotions that are going to be cutting corners and trying to make a few little pound here. Because, you know, myself and Joe, we're still investing in money and time. This isn't a money maker at the moment. So because we want to do things properly, you know, we want to have, you know, every bit of money we get in, if it's sponsors or tickets or TV or pay-per-view, that's invested back in, whether it be fighter wages, whether it be, you know, better technology, better social media, you know, all the things that we're doing, you know, clothing for the fighters, all that kind of stuff is invested back in. So it's not a money maker. It's about the long-term ambitions of the sport, really. Well,
you guys are building a brand that will last the test of time.
100%.
Like, once yous are done doing it, it'll continue on, and that's really the goal. The money will come. You know, making money will always be there. You'll always be able to do it.
100%. So let's fast forward a little bit now. So in a little over a week, man, you guys got a big show coming up, right? And on the 26th, it's next Saturday. So BKB 15. Give us a, give us a little taste. Give us a little. What can we expect? What can people expect out of the show?
One thing we do, and I know a lot of promoters will come on and go like, match 50-50 fights and all this kind of stuff, which most of the time is complete bullshit. You know what I mean? They're really now protected. The small promotions look after their ticket sellers. The bigger promotions look after their names. You know, we see it even at the top tiers and the bottom tiers. With us, we really don't do that. We really throw in dangerous fights for guys that perhaps sell a lot of tickets, because we want the integrity of the sport, particularly the early days. It's very, very important the early days that happens. So you'll see, you know, we'll have 11 fights. Of those 11 fights, you'll get 6 or 7 crackers, and you'll get a couple of fights that you'll be like, wow, that's just wow. And you know, we've got the potential. There's always going to be a couple. You get a couple that of early knockouts and stuff. That happens. It's the nature of the beast, really, of that sport. And people, you know, people do like that as well. But we genuinely have a well-matched fight. You know, there is no gimmicky fights. There is no, you know, we're not, you know, I was speaking to Brad about it when we matched him. I was like, you know, Brad, there is no, don't say to me words like, I want to get my hands off, I've not done bare knuckle before.
Yeah.
You know, that as soon as you start saying words like that to me and Joe, we're not interested. We switch off. We don't care who you are. We want guys that want active live fights, because that's what the fans want. And I know, like I said, most promoters will come on and say that shit, but when you look at the card, you think, well, that's a given, that's a given, that's a given. You know, whereas ours aren't. You know, there's you know, I've got probably out of the 11 fights, 4 fights I could say, put my hat on, I think that guy's going to win. But the other 7, I'm like, I can really make a case. It's just, you know, on the day, perhaps who gets that, who's got a better game plan and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's what I want. If I can then look at a card and go that, then I know we're doing things right, and that's what we want, really.
So now for the people that will rent it, because now Fight TV, we can get it here. I know there's a bunch of fights on the card, and this isn't asking to play favorites, but if you had to pick, like, this is going to be potential fight of the night, which there's probably 5 or 6 that could be fight of the night, but if you had to put your thumb on one of them.
Just one. If I've got one, it would probably be Tyler Goodjohn versus Mark Navarro. So Tyler Goodjohn is the guy that you saw the fight with. Tony If guys had not, if guys haven't seen that, watch out on YouTube. Just put in Goodjohn versus Lafferty. It's a great fight. It's one of my favourite fights.
Must be watched fight. It was insane.
Yeah. So watch that fight. So Tyler's an ex-English glove champion, very good pedigree. He's one of the guys that we've been able to attract. Sort of 27 years old. He left glove boxing to come and do BKB. So that was a big coup for us at the time, you know, to get Tyler to come and do it. And then he's facing Mark Navarro. Now Mark is just a crazy Scottish guy who just fights. Again, he's got great pedigree. He was a kickboxer. He's fought on loads of big promotions. As tough as hell. His fight versus Lawson was a good fight. They really don't like each other as well, which always had that little bit of 10% where, like,
a genuine dislike each other, not for the cameras. Oh, okay.
Yeah, a genuine dislike. Good. And both guys that would look you straight in the eye and go, I'm going to beat him up. You know, like, and not like, you know, you get a lot of guys that play the bravado, but deep down they think maybe I'm out of my depth here. But those guys are 100% going in there, believe to the core that they're gonna win that fight. And I've got a feeling that will go pretty much the full distance. You know, like I said, it's them Scottish guys. They're always tough guys. You know, if you fight a Scottish fighter, I suppose it's just like a Mexican boxer. You know, you always know you're going to be in a fight. Them guys scrap for everything.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's the same. And then you've got the England versus Scotland kind of thing in there as well, which sort of adds another little bit of country spice to it as well for everyone.
Awesome. Now I'm willing to bet when that fight's over, they hug it out at the end. And that's something I pay attention to. I've watched a bunch of the fights that you've had, and no matter how mad the guys get, no matter what happens during the fight, they walk off, and it's like, okay, we fought. We're good now. You know what I mean? It's just, I think it's kind of the pinnacle of sportsmanship. It really is, because you're beating the shit out of each other. You're not wearing gloves. And the fight that we mentioned, we keep bringing it up, the one you sent me, those guys were smiling in the middle of the fight. It was just wild. Josh, we got to link it at the bottom. It's just the wildest fight to see.
Yeah, 100%. We're super pumped for the card, man.
I can't wait.
We're both going to be tuning in. And like you said, it's going to be on pay-per-view. It's going to be on Fight TV. Please check it out. So it's BKB 15, January 26th. And you don't...
1 p.m. our time.
Yeah, 1 p.m. our time. Yes, that's correct.
And we've got a big fight first out. So over here, basically, it's on TV. So it's not on Fight TV over here. It's on Sky channel, which people can buy over here. So we've got Will Chop first out versus a French MMA guy called Safin Benchara. So that's going to be really good, because obviously you guys know Will. We fought Max Holloway back in the UFC. He's got every fighting style going. Massive at the weight, 6'4", ridiculous weight. He fights out like a little beanpole. He's fighting a guy that's like 5'8", Algerian again, tough boy. So I'm expecting like sort of that's why we've put that one first out. So that's going to be like let's just set our stall, look at this one, guys, and it's good, you know, for the Americans, because it's someone, you know, it's an American guy fighting someone that they're, you know, reasonably familiar with, that they can look at and go, actually, that was really cool, and hopefully that catches people's attention then for the rest of the card.
I do have one question, and I hope the people that watch this, I'm not the only person that asks this. I've talked to a bunch of your fighters. We're bringing them on the show and stuff. When they say they're off by 1 stone, how much weight is that exactly?
Oh yeah, because it's because you guys still use pounds, isn't it? The only civilized.
We're the only people that don't use metric. It's insane. So what is a stone? Like 13.6?
16 pounds and stuff. So we allow half a stone to difference to fight, but obviously we weigh in on the same day. There's no, that you guys, if you're fighting and then elite athletes, they can weigh in the day before and go up 20 pounds overnight for the next day. It becomes a huge difference. So we weigh in on the same day, but we allow basically half a stone, so sort of half that sort of weight. So most of the guys are the same weight come fight night, which is really what it's about. And the other thing I think with the same day weigh-in, I honestly firmly believe it's safer, because I think dehydration is one of the biggest evils in combat sport, and that Son spoke of as well, that people don't deal with the dehydration issue. So I think that she was like, oh, when are you going to go to day before weigh-in? I was like, we're never going to do that, ever, no matter how big, because I believe that you fight at the weight that you're going to, all this ridiculous weight cuts, it's so dangerous for the guys. So I'm a firm believer that it's same day. You fight the weight you're going to have that.
But he is right. There's guys that when they rehydrate and refeed, they might weigh in at, let's say, 155. Yeah. But when they step in the ring, they're like 180. Like they put on all this weight. Plus, your method, you can't have a bad weight cut. If you dehydrate, you won't be able to fight.
Well, you should fight the weight you are, so you shouldn't be water cutting. Because, again, I'm a firm believer with the sciences. A lot of the dangers, particularly of the glove boxing, because it's potentially 36 minutes of repetition of knocking the brain around, and having no water on the brain. And that's the most problem, because you see with a lot of boxers, they'll sit and do their interview at the end of the fight and they'll be perfectly fine, and then you see them, you hear a story of they've collapsed in the dressing room, and that's the dehydration that does that. I don't care what anyone says, that's my firm belief in it. So I don't want people doing water cut. Fight at the weight that you're comfortable at.
You know who else has adopted that? One Championship, the MMA in Singapore. They, I know somebody in there, and I was kind of asking questions about it. If you cut more, if they have a percentage of water you're allowed to cut, if you cut more than that percentage, they deem you unsafe. You're not fighting. They don't care. But that's smart. That's smart. It keeps people safe.
I think that's the way to go for most organisations at some point. I really do. And like I said, I just think that, because obviously we started a lot of it while we started with the same day, because, it worked out. You've got all the guys on one day. You haven't got to, worry about weighing and all that nonsense where, send me your weighing and all that other stuff that could be cheated. So it kind of fell into it. And then we started thinking about it and, and saying to guys, and me and Joe spoke about it, I was like, look, the dehydration issue, let's keep this. This is safer. It just, people shouldn't be doing water cuts. It's not good for you. They don't care. The science is there. It's not good at all. So I'm a firm believer in the same day, fight at your weight that's sensible. That you can
I watch your weigh-in videos. Your guys generally all make weight all the time.
Yeah.
I check them out. Check out the weigh-ins because you're looking. Let's see if this guy missed or that guy missed. Never. Look at that. We're learning something today. Don't you think, Jeff?
We try and monitor as well. So again, we're quite close with the guys. I'll message the guys from when we match them to the night of the show, at least probably half a dozen times about weight, and we have conversations all the time about stuff as well. So, we're constantly having a look at that. And, we've been able a couple of times to adjust weight between the fighters. So, if a couple of fighters are struggling, we can adjust it by a couple of kilos and stuff as well. But the main thing is the safety aspect of it, because again, it's a new sport. We can't afford any problems. Any problems in this sport, it's done. It's done. Right. One accident, it's done. If a glove boxing, God forbid something happens, they can get away with it because they've got thousands of other events. If bare knuckle has something like that, the sport's done before it starts. It's finished. So you can't have anything like that.
Plus, the other sports have had deaths due to weight cuts. All of them.
Yeah.
So I guess if it happens very early, people are just like, "No, we're done with this." But no, it's definitely appreciated. You guys take the extra step in the measures to make sure the sport goes on, to make sure the fighters, first and foremost, the fighters are safe.
Yeah.
But it's better for everybody. It's better for the fans. We got turned on to bare knuckle, and it's been like all go. Like I can't even remember. I watch big MMA fights now still, but it seems to be my thing at this point. So now for the people that want to kind of follow this, because it is cool to follow another promotion, especially when they're outside of your country. It's very cool. What would be the best places on social media, whether it be, because I know you put out information, I know BKB has stuff, what would be the best place for people to really follow your promotion, especially from over here?
We're on all the promotions, so you've touched on it. There's obviously YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Facebook's probably our biggest used platform, and Twitter being our lowest used platform, just because of who's got the, you know, you're probably, if you look at our fight card, a lot of our guys are not haven't marketed themselves perhaps as what as they could do, so they haven't used Twitter as perhaps as what they could have done. But we're on all the platforms. BKB official. You can just look us up and you'll find it on there. We've got a very active social media. You'll get lots of information. You get blasted with stuff. You know, sometimes probably too much stuff. But follow guys travel. You know, we've got guys coming over from Saudi Arabia, America, Canada for the show that have come 3 or 4 cards because they just like the show, like the cards, and it you know, that kind of thing. It feels good and it's special. So I know, like, obviously, like in America particularly, unless it happens in America, you know, you guys don't sort of recognise it, even though we've been around for a number of years. Now it's kind of happening in America. People are starting to sit up and take notice of that, really. So which is going to open up new doors for us, which is good, really.
You know, the whole health aspect, I think it's a big thing, and I think it's real admirable that you guys are trying to look after the fighters, because we actually had a conversation earlier about the same exact thing, and about cutting water weight. And like you said, you know, with the water weight and the dehydration, where you're losing all that liquid in the brain, and it's like there's no cushion for your brain when it's getting rocked around and kicked around and punched around, and it's again, I can't preach about it enough. I think it's something that doesn't get enough attention, and I think it's something that should get more attention. It should be more important to some of these other organizations. I think it needs to be made a priority, because you've got dehydrated fighters and unhealthy fighters fighting. You're not going to get the best out of them anyways. You know, you're not going to see the best fights from some of these guys, because, you know, the only reason why I think some of us can't notice is because everybody's doing it. Everybody's dehydrated. Everybody's sluggish. So, you know, like there's only a few guys like UFC. Everybody does it in UFC. Everybody's cutting the most amount of weight possible so they can be the biggest possible. You know, and it's I think you've answered the question as why people do it. You know, we're in a lucky position that we've invented a whole sport, and we did invent this sport. We was the first to do it and all that kind of stuff. So we could look at every aspect of the business and determine what we wanted to do. You know, whereas you know, if you set an MMA company up, you do it because it's been done since time immemorial. You don't challenge the stuff, perhaps to look at stuff. Why? Because, like you said, the UFC is the market leader, so they do it, so it must be right. And that's and then it's just a general kind of perception that, and everyone jumps on that. Well, they're doing it, so it must be. But you know, we've been fortunate that we're able to look at the whole thing and build the rules that we wanted to do, and look at, okay, we're doing that. Why are we doing that? You know, like with the standing 18 count, you know, and stuff. Well, why is doing that? Because, you know, potentially the shock of a bare knuckle punch is obviously the force is a lot more than other combat sports. So it gives time for the fights to carry on. And you know, the guys, you hear the crowd as well, that guys that might get knocked down 2 or 3 times but keep getting back up, and it's like, hey, and they get. Whereas if we were doing a standing 8 count, you know, that they wouldn't have that opportunity. The fight would be over. So, you know, they're the little bits that we've been able to adopt and to look at stuff and to make something that's good for everyone. Kind of thing. Yeah, no, 100%. I think that I'm a firm believer that the American wrestling community, all the amateur wrestling, all that stuff is really, because a lot of these guys are wrestling based, that's in MMA, and they're brought up in that culture of cutting drastic amount of weight, and it's just, unfortunately, like I said, it's like a cancer, and it's just kind of permeated through all the different combat sports now, and it's just, like I said, I can't speak about it enough, but I don't want to ramble on about it, but I think it's important. I mean, I really do. I think it's important for the athletes. It's important for the organizations, because like Jim said, you know, nobody wants to be responsible for a guy after a fight going back to the locker room and he keels over. You know, nobody wants that. You know, it looks bad for everybody. It looks bad for the promotion, looks bad for the sport in general, looks bad for, you know, it looks bad for everybody. And it's just something that, like I said, I don't want to ramble on about it. I could talk about it for, you know, all day, but I think it's an important topic.
We do. It's fighters first, and people say to me, but you know, you gain a lot of fighters, and there's probably 20, 30 fighters who would come on your show and go, they're arseholes, they're this. You know, the unfortunate thing in our business is, as we've grown, you know, we've gone from hay bales of 100 people to 3,000 people. So's the level of fighters. You know, to give the people what they, you know, the old days it'd be the first good shot won the fight because they were bar and brawlers, they're not trained athletes. So as we've grown, it's been inevitable we've had to leave some guys behind. You know, and you know, when you in any kind of sport, even the UFC, you see it, when a guy's cut, they either go two ways. They go super respectful and they respect the time they've done, or they go really animosity, and then all of a sudden that organisation is the biggest piece of shit going. It's the nature of the business, and particularly with us because where we've grown a lot, you know, there's not many guys that have been around for a couple of years left because the levels have just gone so quickly. You know, we're attracting people like Brad Pickett, like Tyler, like Mark. You know, the old guys, they'd have gone through the whole lot of them in one night. It's just, as we've grown, so is the level. So unfortunately, you have to leave some people behind. It's just the nature of the business. And I always say to people, it's like a football team. You know, your football team always aims to improve. Sometimes the players have to change to improve, and that's just the way it goes. But you know, ultimately, we know we're trying to do the best thing for the fighters. We're overpaying a lot of them for the levels they are, and rightly so. And we're trying to put good conditions for them. And you know, a lot of our guys have kind of grown with us. And you know, the early days, people hardly train. You know, you should see the aesthetics of them and how they look. Whereas now they're athletes. They're pro athletes. You know, 99% of our guys now have been a professional athlete in some discipline before they come to bare knuckle.
Yeah. Right.
Wow. Yeah,
I like it.
I can't wait, man. I mean, I feel like I'm like a little giggly kid on Christmas morning, man. I just love it. I love this sport. I love combat sports in general. I mean, we're huge fans of just a good fight. You know, whether bare knuckle boxing, MMA. I think we're just huge fans of a good fight. You know, I have respect for anybody that steps in there and does it. You know, I have huge respect for guys like you, man. Like I said, you're essentially kind of a pioneer of this generation of the sport, and it's running a promotion, I'm sure, is more stressful than I'll ever experience. So I can only imagine, the type of daily stress you go to, especially this close to fight week. But
look how comfortable he looks. He's cool and collected, man.
It's like the tsunami situation a week before the fight. It's all the calm before the storm. When we get into next week, it all goes crazy. It's a difficult. You know, like I say, myself and Joe have learned a lot of lessons along the way because it is like no business we've ever dealt with. You know, managers of fighters, promoters, fighters. You know, some of the strangest people you've got to. And you know, me and Joe talk about it, and we're like, oh, this guy's done this, this guy's done that, and we're like, we always have to remind ourselves, listen, if you want to do what they do, you know, you've got to be a little bit quirky to be a fighter. You know, you're not coming from Miami to be a fighter. You're coming from the Bronx. You're coming from places like that. That's the situation. Fighters don't, they come because they have to fight, and it's not a lot of time. It's not always a life choice. So they're not going to be the same guys as perhaps me and you that can be a little bit more reasonable on certain issues. Fighters are fighters, but like you said, you have to give them ultimate respect because they're getting in there doing the stuff that me and you wouldn't choose to do for the money that they do it for. Simple as that. Then.
100%, man. Well, like I said, Mr. Freeman, man, I can't wait. Like I said, I can't wait till for next week, and we wish you all the best of luck. And I'm sure the show is going to be a huge success. It already kind of is. So, like I said, we just wish you all the best of luck. And check them out. Check them out on his social media. Check out all their stuff. Get all the information you can. Find out everything. Get in touch with him. Send him a message. I don't know. Maybe Jim likes long walks on the beach. Maybe he'll talk to you for a little bit. I don't know. But
not on fight week.
Maybe not fight week. But anyways, guys, we thank you so much. Thank you, Jim, for your time. Like I said, absolute pleasure, sir. For Nick, for Josh, we're Combat Insiders. That's Jim Freeman, and we're out.